mistress.
Yo, what's good, everybody? What's poppin'? Welcome back to another episode. You already know the podcast with Prodigy. Y'all already know me. Before we get started, as always, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, do all that stuff. I'm gonna tell you every single time, but y'all better be doing it. But anyways, we got a legend in the game, OG up in the game right here. We got Spider Loke, my G.
Prodigy, what's up, bro? Pleasure,
feeling,
man.
bro? How
and
you
I
feeling?
appreciate the invite and the blue carpet, man.
Yes, sir.
Thank
yes,
you.
sir, bro. How you feeling? Where'd you come from today?
And I'm blessed, man. It was a nice little ride out here on the freeway. I came from the Compton area. I was watching a little game, man, watching Brady take that punch on the chin.
I think everybody was,
Yeah.
especially playing against the Cowboys. Come on now.
I'm glad that it went the way it went to the point where there's no need to focus on the game no more. We can get to business because I was worried about having my attention. Like, I think it's a wrap.
Yeah,
It's a wrap.
Yeah, it's a wrap.
To be honest with you, if it was close, I probably would have just said, let's post up and watch this for a second.
Okay, real player shit. I probably would have voted for that too. I'd have been with that.
Yes. Anyways, besides that, there may be like a younger audience, there may be younger people, in the game listening to this podcast and stuff like that. So let's just get like a quick breakdown of like who you really are. So like where you grew up from.
Hey, young world. The world is yours. My name is Spider Loke, a.k.a. SPI, a.k.a. the Most Easty. I was actually born in the city of Compton. I was raised in between Compton and the Watts or the East Side, South Central area. I have had a professional recording career ever since about 2001, 2002. For you youngsters, you know how easy Google can tell you more about me than I can in this small moment. So if you put Spider Loke in a Google search, you might realize I've been around for a moment, done some things not only in the music industry, but also in the acting industry. And I am currently found on a regular basis at youtube.com/Spider Loke Most Easty in the black box, where I do something similar to this. And I also have a podcast entitled Facts Over Feelings. And that's spelled FACTZOVA. Then it's feelings with an INZ at the end. And that's on all your podcast streaming sites. And I just get busy, man.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's good to see when OGs and rappers in general like hopping on like the podcast wave, because my pops over here, Floss, been telling everybody, yo, do more interviews, do these podcasts and stuff like that.
It's crazy how important or how much of the spotlight just having conversation about subjects is taken. Because I can recall as an artist when, having something to say to the public was kind of safe for those who were sitting on a certain side of the industry. Now we're in a renaissance time where everyone has opportunity to open their mouth, have their voice heard, and develop a community of like minds. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate being able to be involved in it, because no matter how deep I've delved into hip hop, my actual experience as a public speaker started far beyond that, even in the church as a child. Mm-hmm. So being able to communicate and express myself verbally has always been something that I enjoy doing. And the fact that it's become such a pastime and a way to develop income, I just appreciate this climate. I never saw this coming.
Yeah.
I listened to talk radio quite a bit for the last, I would say, 15 years. And I still thought that technology would take talking backwards. I never thought talking would become such a prominent expression.
Let me ask you a question, because
Please.
That's interesting. Do you think, because I kind of got myself into listening to talk radio before the whole podcast thing took off.
Correct.
Do you think that's because we do so much music that we're just burnt out on listening to radio?
I can tell you personally my exact experience, how I got to the point of talk radio. I was involved with driving my children to school early in the morning.
Yeah.
And I have 6 children, and my experience was actually triggered by my 2 oldest, who are female. They're now 22 and 19. But about, I would say, maybe 8-7 years ago, I was taking them to school, private school in San Gabriel. I already committed to not playing my music around my children just for so much subject matter. I just never felt comfortable playing my old music around my kids. So I would think the better option was to listen to things like Power 106 in the morning. So I can remember vividly with my 2 daughters driving to school early in the morning, 7-something a.m. in the morning, 8:30 or 8 in that bracket, and thinking you're not playing the street music, hip-hop, dirty music, you're going with the mainstream. And I could just recall like night and day, like it was yesterday, a record comes on, it's R&B, and the first lines are, pull your panties to the side. I'm like, whoa. And that's when I was talk radio from that point on. And that has carried on. It's kind of played out to me now. But it is the fact, and I also didn't miss, the radio had become so full of records that weren't really fulfilling my taste. I didn't really miss the radio. I missed more of the Big Boy in the Morning, the Luther Lufe. Yeah, that's what I missed, yeah. But the music didn't quite, it changed so drastically that I would have to go to a playlist of mine to find the music I really liked anyway.
Remember Theo?
Oh, yeah, Theo was a G.
92.3 Theo.
When, by the time we realized Theo wasn't black, we was like, damn.
What was he, by the way?
He was some type of Asian persuasion, yeah, but he had
Filipino
that cold voice. Yeah, I think he was Filipino.
Yeah.
Shout out to Theo. He was a G out here.
That sexy
Shout out
voice.
to Julio G, because Julio
G was the real one.
Yeah, and he was really helpful in me being able to make some noise out here. He really helped me break my record on the radio back in the day. Shout out to Julio G.
Word up. Hey, earlier you were saying that, you know, your music started off early when you was in the church singing, doing all that stuff, public speaking. I want to bring it back to about your childhood and, you know, growing up and stuff like that. Like, what did your parents do for work growing up?
Well, my mother, she worked in a basic office corporate setting that was associated with the longshoreman industry, which is the shipping and receiving of the ships down in the docks in the Bay in Long Beach and San Pedro. She worked in an office for a company called PMA, Pacific Maritime, that was associated with that industry. My father primarily, when I was a child, worked for Pac Bell, Pacific Bell. That was the phone company.
Classic.
He used to climb the poles and do all that type of shit, drive a van, and move around. But at the same time, he was a welder, and he also was an entrepreneur to the point where he had a hamburger stand that he had in my hood on 94th and Avalon, Big Tommy's Burgers, and he had a couple pieces of property. So he was a jack of all trades at certain points in my life. But my mother, she worked in that industry of maritime, and I was her only child. She was able to purchase a home in the mid to late 70s when I was 1 year old for $30,000.
Nice.
Her house note with a 30-year mortgage never exceeded $300. So she was able to kind of like, she got heavily involved in like religion and shit when I was about 8 or 9. And but my father, he had male children that were from my other mother, which is his wife. My mother and my father hooked up kind of like my father was going through like a 6-month separation from my other mother, which is his wife. And he started the romance with my mother that eventually produced me. So, and then eventually my mother got heavy into the church and religion and all that, and she chose Jesus over my pops. You feel me? And then because of my gift as an orator and being in that environment, I was in my youth in that circle, they pegged me as a preacher early.
A preacher?
A preacher.
Ah, okay.
Before preacher, my earliest experience were being, they had, children's hour, children's story.
Yeah.
So I can recall being the person, the go-to guy for children's story to the degree that the guy, whoever was scheduled to do it on certain days, didn't show up, and they would ask me in the clutch if I could come up with something in an hour or so. And I remember going up there and just making up shit off the top of my head, like freestyle stories and making a little moral to it.
Did you have the whole swag and like a preacher swag?
I can't recall if I had the confidence, but
you're almost singing and stepping.
By the age of 14 or 15, I was the one being chosen for youth days to speak to the whole congregation.
Were you entertaining?
Then I had the swag then. Okay. Oh, yes. I can mimic it to this day. Yeah, I was raised in the environment.
Let's hear something you would pick.
I would just say, if in any moment of time of pain or worry, or if you're concerned about tomorrow, there's no need to Worry about a day past the day of the moment of now, because the Lord Christ himself would descend upon your spirit with, I can put, whatever. I'm just trying to, it's way deeper than that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but y'all was overexposed to a religious lifestyle based on
what religion were you?
Seventh-day Adventist, Protestant
Seventh-day
Christians,
Adventist.
yes.
So you're sorry to interrupt, Prodigy.
No problem.
Because I went to a Seventh-day Adventist for 4 years.
Where? In what?
In La Sierra. Off of 91.
Loma Linda, La Sierra. I know all about it.
Loma Linda.
I know all about it.
So your seventh day was Saturday. It means from sundown on Friday till sun up on Saturday, you represented and kept that day holy.
No TV, no playing, no buying, no selling.
You just worship the Lord.
There you go. Ellen G. White was like a name I was super familiar with. Yeah.
And you primarily they treat your body like a temple, so they tried to encourage you to eat vegetarian almost.
No, the most ironic part, you brought up the most ironic element outside of they worshipped on Saturday versus Sunday.
Yeah. That
they were the first, they were like head on with the health message.
They were 100%.
Because what's fly now about vegan and all that? They tried to raise us that when it was embarrassing.
Oh, the vegan back then was disgusting.
Indeed, but I was exposed to people who still dedicated their lives to it. I went to schools that would serve meals every day and never have any meat. My grandmother, my father, who was not of the lifestyle at all, if I caught him right now, my grandmother, rest in peace, God bless her soul, he just always brags about that's the only home he ever went to where he'd eat a whole Thanksgiving meal and didn't realize he never ate no meat.
But it was still good on Sabbath. It was good.
Indeed.
So you don't eat pork still or no?
I don't eat pork anymore.
Yeah, because that is why. Why do you not eat pork?
Well, because now I just have come to a mind state of maturity and understanding of how filthy it is.
Yeah.
However,
scavenger.
It's a scavenger indeed. But because it was something that was so forbidden so long, at one point it was something that I just felt like I had to eat just because nobody could stop me. Nobody can stop me now, but I've gotten to a lot more conscious place in my life where I just don't consume as many things that just because they're available and they taste well.
How good is bacon, though? Come on.
Bacon and sausage, and in particular, McDonald's sausage, bro. I know McDonald's ain't shit, but it's something about that sausage patty, bro. It's the perfect.
Yeah.
I don't care how many ones that you buy at the grocery store that look like those. How many other places you go to.
You're talking about the one that's on the McMuffin.
That's the one.
That's the one that's so good.
One, bro. Look, I will go to McDonald's and get a sausage patty, a hash brown, and a side of scrambled eggs. That's what.
But you can order a sausage patty by itself?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
It used to be a big breakfast, but now they don't sell a big breakfast no more, so you got to piece it up with the sides.
I forgot about that. They used to be able to get the full scrambled egg breakfast.
Yes, now they sell you pancakes and they put bacon. I don't want all that. That bacon looks so
everything's
fake.
served in a hamburger now. The whole pancakes.
They got the McGriddle where they got like the pancakes.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm cool on. I don't really like the sweet. I don't need
that's
sweets.
Too much.
Yeah.
Well, bringing it back to you being a teenager and obviously having that swag that you was talking about just showed us right now, being able to step. I wanted to go.
That was extras though, as an old man. That's not how I did it back then.
Yeah, but
that was me trying to mimic how I perhaps would do it at this age.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
But it's that same mindset.
Yeah, there you go. The same confidence.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about like growing up as a teenager, like your high school days and stuff like that. Was you into like sports, or you was more into like getting them good grades?
But once again, I've never been like really self-motivated to be a standout scholastically. And had I believe I definitely could have achieved that. I graduated eventually with like a 2.8 with showing very little effort, which led me to believe with just a minute effort I could have been an honor roll student. But I just never tried, just bullshitted through school, and I graduated with a 2.8. Outside of that, I was just mischievous. Like I say, I had a single mother. I was born in Compton. I caught the bus from Compton to Torrance for the majority of like my between 7th to 10th grade, which are those developing years. And after 10th grade, I was bused to Glendale, to a private school as well. But the exposure of catching a bus throughout the city and the gang element being so prominent at that time, it was so attractive to me. And I had brothers that lived at my father's house that kind of like, they were older than me, and they got involved in the street element and the criminal element prior to me. And my mother, I can show you pictures of me in diapers with my brothers, even though we have separate mothers. So I was always, since a youth, under the influence to some degree of what was happening under my father's household. And no matter how strict my mother attempted to be on me, I always had an outlet. So when I went to my daddy's house to be with the hardheads, going around the corner, doing the bullshit, and it kind of won that.
Wait, so the rest of your family they weren't Seventh-day Adventists?
Oh, not on my father's side, only on my mother's
Okay,
side.
I got it. Okay.
I had a large family on my mother's side. Her mother and her sisters, they all, for the most part, were Seventh-day Adventists. But when it came to my father's side, there was absolutely nobody that was Seventh-day Adventist. And in my father's household, there was basically no religion at all. My father rarely or never went to church, and if he did, it was almost because I invited him. Outside of that, he had no church. And my brothers and them, when I was very, very young, I remember going to their house, and then on Sundays, we were pretty young. I remember us getting dropped off at the church, but we never stayed till it was over with. We'd be out of there.
Well, did your Seventh-day Adventists always have like a buffet at the end?
Fellowship hall, yeah. Haystacks.
Hey,
and
you guys didn't make it to the fellowship hall?
Oh, no. At my church, we did.
Okay.
I'm talking about when I go to my daddy's house, and on every random Sunday, blue moon, for some reason, I don't know why, my brothers would be at church, maybe because my father's mother wanted them there. We would go to the church, but my brothers and them, by the time we get dropped off,
they're gone.
we out of there.
Yeah,
we sit there, sing 2 songs, we out of there.
Because they go to youth and then they'll be out.
Yeah, but at my mama's house, we couldn't have got, that's an ass whooping. But at my daddy's house, didn't nobody really give a fuck. You pop back up at the house, they didn't care.
That's funny.
So, of course, as a child, that had a mischievous, even in my Adventist environment I was raised in, you always got good kids, bad kids. I was definitely always looked at as someone that was most likely to succeed type individual. But at the same time, I always found myself as the asshole, the class clown, the most mischievous. You go to grad night, I end up in Disneyland jail for cussing that. It was always me to a large degree. I had this a parent with all the adults would consider calling or potential to be the good guy, but I always had an attraction toward being the fuck up. Ended up in prison.
Were you the class clown?
Indeed, I chose moments to be the class clown often.
Got it. Okay.
But at the same time, I was also one of the most prolific students when it came time to philosophize. I can explain it in this way. 8th grade, I went to a school in Torrance, California. I went there from 7th to 10th grade, but we graduated in 8th grade. And it was probably about 5 to 6 to 10% black in my class. My teacher was a lady by the name of Miss Northrup. She appeared to be in her 60s or 70s. She was Caucasian. And at the graduation in 8th grade, she mentioned about 3 students. 2 of them were on honor roll and amazing. She talked about how awesome they were. And then she mentioned a 3rd student. The 3rd student, she said, this is the only student I've ever taught who can carry 3 or 4 conversations on in class. And when I try to catch him off guard and ask him what I'm talking about, he can explain everything I've been talking about for the last hour as well. And she was mentioning me. Then I went to Glendale Adventist Academy for 11th and 12th grade.
Well, hold up. So somebody had to pay for that academy.
My mother. Remember,
so you guys were well off.
Remember, I described her job.
Yeah,
she worked in the corporate side of the Pacific Maritime longshoreman industry. I was her only child. Yeah. Her house note never exceeded $300 for my whole life. So you can just do the math. I was her only child.
So she really spent some money on you.
So, I mean, I appreciate it. But if you do the numbers, it's not as expensive as it may sound. But, yeah, she did spend some money.
Well, it's expensive if you're broke. That's the thing. It's like if
but
you're broke,
she wasn't, remember,
she made a good living. She had a good income.
I thought we were doing well.
No, you didn't. I mean, if you're doing that job right now, you're doing well. I have friends
but
doing
when
that job.
when I talk to my mother now and I look back to ask her from a dough, she told me she never made more than $5,000 a month, but she was single, house note $300.
That's still like, to be honest
One
with you.
child, you can kind of spread it around.
But back, she was making $5,000 a month back then.
I mean, she retired around 08, 09, and that was, I don't think she ever exceeded that. So
she had a good, she wasn't rich, but she had a good lifestyle.
Correct.
To take care of the
But
kids.
you know what I believe? She was whooped by religion.
Yeah.
Because my mother was and is so religious and so convicted by the Holy Spirit and Christianity in Christ that she not only dedicated herself to pay 10. No, she went 20, bro.
20%?
20.
Tithe?
20.
Holy.
Plus the healthy, fluent offerings and all the charities and benevolence. So I look at us right now as worldly. No matter how spiritual we are, we have a practical approach to the world, especially as parents.
Yeah.
So I do the mathematics of a single parent dedicated to their job for the whole 30-year process. And that same 20% tithe put into some type of parental fund preparation for a child. Yeah. I wonder how many other people in my community went for the okie doke like my mama.
Well, I mean, you figure she's making, let's say she's making $100,000 a year, right? Which she was probably making close to 80 during that time, right?
20, 60, 80, yep.
So let's say 80. She's giving $16,000 away. Every year she's giving away a car that she could give to one of the kids, whatever. Every single
She has
year.
one child.
And by the way, that's only the tithe. That doesn't happen. That is not on Saturday offerings.
Look, at this age, I finally got an opportunity because she's so like exclusive when it comes to me with her finances and her business. I finally come to the spectrum in my life where I finally was able to at least refer to her tax person. And the person who does her taxes is more close to her age than mine. But I have a relationship because it's my tax lady and her son, rest in peace, love you, Unc. We have a bond to the point where when she did my mother taxes, she just said, look, tell your mama stop giving away so much money. And she doesn't like cross her conversation with her clients, but she couldn't resist putting that in my ear. She just feels, religion.
A lot of money.
Yeah, religion is a motherfucker.
Well,
yeah.
Shit.
If you can convince someone orally or writtenly that you have a word from their creator that they can't get direct and this is what it is, that's a motherfucker. As much as I look back on my experience personally and I see what it could have been and I no longer actually pledge to that lifestyle, I also view in our current climate of society and the type of civilization we live in, I imagine what the world would be without those type of beliefs.
Oh, it'd be chaos.
Thank you. So I see
There's structure.
Yes, whether it's real, fake.
It doesn't matter. It's like
there you go.
Giving people like guidelines to abide by. Like who knows? You could have been in the streets with your homies and your brothers and doing crazy shit, but you might have been like, hey, this is right.
You are perfectly correct. Yeah. Like without the overkill of a different type of life, I know I would have been cut short because even with all that was put in place to kind of hold me back, I was like, I went over it. Yeah. So just imagine without those parameters. There's a value
for sure.
Oh, yes, definitely.
I don't think your mom should have paid for that, but I mean, there's a value.
Right. But then what would she have been doing other than, True. Sometimes it's not the actual activity that we're engaging in versus the effect it has on the actual overall situation to bring about.
Or also like, if you believe you're going in a direction, because everybody can go work at 9 to 5 and just be burnt the fuck out, and that's it in life. They want to commit suicide. Mm-hmm. But if you have a vision, like I'm going someplace, which religion does give you like a vision of going someplace, some final destination, and there's a goal. So I guess that's reasonable to believe.
Yeah, it is, and it can easily go. And you can easily sign up for that. And I kind of think that's the matrix because even in my life, I look and say, hey, if I went with that cookie cutter pre-produced path right now, I know what I can do with that message.
You would have been rich. You would have been the evangelist on TV, dude.
TD who?
Yeah. You would have been all slick back.
Yes.
You would have worn a suit.
Yes.
But
then I wonder, I'm going to keep it honest. I do not buy into the message and the doctrine at this point in my life like I did at one point. However, at the point that I turned away from the actual lifestyle, it wasn't because I didn't believe anymore. It was more just straying away. And I'm kind of glad I've arrived to this point, because I think at this point, I would be breaking my neck to get right back there. But I just don't believe, I can't get up in front of those group of people and say what they taught me to say. I can't say that. It's deep because I've even had some time spent in my life as a college student, so I've been exposed to somewhat of both sides. I do maintain or claim a dual citizenship when it comes to like the more appropriate side of society, and I've ran with the demons. Like, you know, I'm spotted low.
We're gonna talk about that too.
On my mama, and I haven't I don't over project what that means or nothing. I try my hardest to display a different side of myself, but it's so hard to shake what everybody believes spotted low to be. Yeah, it's so hard. And I can remember at one time, telling you, I was raised in private school, the church boy. I can remember being the guy.
That at all.
Thank you. It's like I played myself, bro. They're over convinced that I'm this guy that at one point, bro, you know, I really had to force myself into the whole activity. So it's crazy that, you know, I was capable of doing such a great job at fucking up, man.
Well, here's the thing. You were meant to be great at something. It could have been the preacher, or it could have been rapping. Turns out rapping was more something you probably loved to do or felt better doing.
Definitely. Definitely was something that felt way more comfortable. That's why I want to tell you, it was even while I was more so a believer, I chose to go with what felt more natural to me versus what was put up in front of me, what was faced, what was taught. Even at the time where I was still like, this was a prayer when I was really still under the doctrine, and it's the decision. It's a prayer I made to God, and I don't even pray toward that same direction anymore. I pray more inward and outward to shit that I can't identify versus toward that source that they taught me about at this point. But at that time, this was my prayer under all the doctrine that I was raised under. Like, God, if I can't go to heaven and if I can't go to heaven and experience this industry like I'm desiring, you're going to have to block it, because I'm not going to stop chasing it. And a lot of times I felt like when I reached plateaus that were less than just successful by everybody's judgment, I feel like I fell victim to that prayer a lot of times. And then I look at it, and when I see there's such thing as a Saucy Santana, a Lil Nas X, and everything in between, I believe I may really have been saved from exactly what I didn't want to participate in sometimes too. So, you know,
nice.
There's so many ways to look at it. I just try not to have no regret, whether you realize it or not. One of my main mottos that I've been pushing publicly for the last year or two is GITA, and it's an acronym, GITA, for gratitude is the attitude. Those are all my slogans. I can imagine with shirt. Those are all my original slogans on that shirt. Shout out to Breeze.
I like it.
The way you put those together, Breeze, appreciate that. But I just, through the last few years, going live consistently on my channel, Spotted Look Most Easty, on YouTube, just talking my shit, I come up just with a few slogans that kind of stuck. And the guy who makes a lot of my merch for me, my T-shirts, he came with a design where he used them all. So that must be what you saw. Keep it a Google.
See it randomly.
Keep it a Google is one of them. The reason why we say keep it a Google is because we know a Google is a denomination of numbers that's larger than 1,000,000, 1,000. Everybody say keep it 100, keep it 1,000, keep it a milli. So I started saying keep it a Google to try to outdo everybody, and that caused my immediate regular followers to be tagged the Google gang. So you'll see keep it a Google up there. Another phrase that I use frequently is
the Giggle Gang?
The Google.
Oh, Google Gang.
The Google Gang. Another phrase that you might have seen on that shirt is on my mama. You know, everybody like in my culture, on my mama. Mm-hmm. I just put my mama on it and it kind of caught on. Yeah. And in facts over feelings is something we go to quite often. And I think that's about the majority of what was on that shirt you saw. Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, cool.
You said you moved on from that lifestyle, how to make that choice, you know, switch up and do the music. But I want to know, like, when that started. What really got you into, like, wanting to be that fool rapping on the beats?
start reading through that while I tell you this story. I can't quite recall if it was 5th or 6th grade because my 5th and 6th grade were like a combination class, had the same teacher. But in that classroom, we had a substitute teacher named Miss Nelson one day, and I remember our assignment was to use our 20 spelling words to write a story. Each person was supposed to get up in front of this class and read the story that they wrote with the spelling words. Without any prompting from any outside energy or forces or influences, I decided to rhyme my story. And I can remember getting up in front of the class, and eventually the class started clapping, trying to provide a beat for me because my shit was rhyming. And I, 5th to 6th grade, that was my first performance. At that same time in my life, I remember as a child, very, very, very young, when there was like growing up in my family who had a birthday, or it was Mother's Day or Christmas, whatever it was, I always had the inclination to write a poem that was personalized. I would get one of the adults who wasn't receiving the gift to help me get it typed up on some colored paper. I would find, you understand? Yeah. I would find some colored paper and get it in a frame. And I've always just been attracted to poetry like that. I can recall being very young. At one point when I really started really taking myself serious with rap is going to prison twice. I've been, all my life, every talent show, I'm doing rap. I had a few rap groups. My best friends, whether they like rap or not, they rap because I was rapping and they was in my groups. I wrote their raps. So I went to prison twice when I was young. Doing my second stint in prison, I made up my mind, like, fuck that. I'm going to try this shit for real when I get out. Prior to that, I remember just having...
You like prison?
Not at all. Fish out of water. However, can you believe this though, Floss? On my mama. As ignorant as it may sound, I could remember I couldn't wait to get to prison.
It was like a badge of
Yeah,
honor?
there you go.
Yeah.
Talk that talk. And then when I finally got my first sentence, and it was only 2 years, it was like, ooh, that was perfect. Like, I got the stripes and I ain't got to go get stretched. And it's like, it just speaks about how, backwards a mind frame can actually be. Like that. I have 6 blood children, 3 boys, 3 girls. However,
Same mom?
4 mothers.
4 moms.
My 2 first were born in wedlock, my 2 oldest daughters. However, their mother had a 2-year-old when I met her. And he is currently a correctional officer in the California Department of Corrections. So along with his father, shout out to his blood pops who had less involvement in his rearing than I did. I've already contributed to society, a tax-paying, law-abiding, law-enforcing citizen. So I'm trying to pay my dues. I have 3 blood boys who are at the age of 14, 15, and 16, and they have absolutely zero desire to be involved in street
That's cool.
activity. So I thank the creator for that. And I'm just hoping that, somehow, they can, through them, I can be a more positive, contribution to our tomorrow than I have been throughout some of the years that past. I thank the creator for blessing me like that. Because me being who I am, who I have been perceived to be, I could see myself dealing with a lot of shit out of my boys and just have to say, like, who can you be mad at?
Right.
And I've to this point, I've been saved from that. So I appreciate that more than a lot.
That's cool.
Yeah, yes, sir. So after those 2 times you got locked up, them 2 years and stuff like that, it got you like time to like think of some stuff while you was in the pen?
No more prison. And I'll keep it a Google. I was blessed because it's not like I curved my lifestyle to just eliminate the opportunity to land in prison. Mm-hmm. But I can say that I was tired of it to enough where I at least took the opportunity to try to take rapping serious. And things started to click for me almost immediately upon my release from prison the second time. I got to meet people who were more successful or established in the industry than myself from the independent point, and then it just graduated. It started off with like being able to politic and work with people like Cam, West Coast Cam with a K. He's from Watts. And then it was like Drace to the Gangster, Yuck Mile, J.O. Felony, and that whole pocket of people. Trade E, Sebo, graduated to Sebo, Brother Lynch, Killer Tay. Then it was Suge Knight, Corrupt, and Crooked Eye, and that energy. And then it went from 50 Cent, Lloyd Banks, G Unit, and then I kind of like had an exposure to the biggest part of it. But I was kind of tied into a label who didn't follow through with everything that was projected to take place for me as an artist. I wasn't quite savvy in the business to really effectively go on from that point on. I had put all my eggs in one basket. Only was really in that position based on, what was proposed to me from the label. And I kind of trusted a lot of if you see this tattoo on my hand, it went way past what I considered typical industry business. Because you fucking with a artist, gangster type, street type, even though he is a very successful, prominent executive, we met on every level of life, and I thought it was way deeper than what just typically industry shit is. Not because of it was foolish, obviously, but it was only foolish because I was deceived. It's not because he didn't put out a very promising push for me to bite on. I didn't bite on just, hey, I like you, let's go.
Yeah,
we went.
So let's go back to that. Like, how did you the whole Suge Knight thing? How did you guys cross paths?
To me, initially, it's ironic. 'Cause I remember a time in my life when Suge was just Suge, big ass Suge, that was part of the industry, and I remember he was in prison, and it was just a common question that I remember having to answer. That like, that nigga Suge finna come home. If he came home, would you fuck with him? And typically the answer should be no, because it was all the drama, all the bullshit. But me, once again, wanted to be a badass, hard ass, and really like would fuck with him. I would always make sure I'm like, hell yeah, I'll fuck with him. Even in the back of my mind, I was thinking like, man, that might not be the right thing to do. That's how I would answer it. Then it got to the point where I remember it was being announced that Suge Knight was coming home at such and such date. He's finally coming home from prison. And I can recall telling everybody in my circle, like, I'm going to make sure by the time he been home for 30 days, I'm going to meet him. 30 days after he get home, I'm going to meet him. I had told everybody I was going to make it my business to meet him within 30 days from the time he came home. Yeah. But I can recall, however, when he came home, I put absolutely zero effort into making that.
That is
it was like he seemed so far. I had like overspoke, and I kind of accepted it. I'm not finna try to, I swear to God, but before 30 days passed, somebody called me and said, Suge Knight want to meet you.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was my big homie Ant from my neighborhood, rest in peace at this point. And I got the opportunity to meet Suge through that invitation. And he invited me to be a part of his label and his roster and all that. However, we never actually worked out any kind of deal that could be substantiated by paperwork. It was just a relationship by association. I could recall King Magazine, which is no longer in publication anymore, but it was a pretty big like men's magazine that was like fused with hip hop and like black swimsuit models type shit. Yeah. In their very first their very first issue, they kind of like used Suge and The Row, which was his new movement after prison, for their immediate episode. And we was a part of that first issue. During that period of time, Suge had the major project that fell in his hands was an Eddie Griffin soundtrack. Eddie Griffin is a comedian, stand-up comedian, actor, quite successful. And Suge got the opportunity to do the soundtrack. I got the opportunity to work with not only Eddie Griffin, but the late, great Lisa Left Eye Lopez. Rest in peace, love you, baby. Met Dr. Sebi way back in those days through Lisa Left Eye Lopez. But that was my experience with Suge. And
So like you was like a part of Death Row, but not like officially for like you didn't have no contract with him. It was just like he wanted to fuck with you.
Yeah, I had a chain. It was the Row at that time. I think legally he was no longer able to.
Was Corrupt the president or
The vice president?
Yeah.
Shout out to Gotti. I just reunited with Gotti like this week. Yeah, that's the homie. And Corrupt came back. I was there before Corrupt on that stretch.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I remember when Corrupt came back.
There was a lawsuit about Corrupt's old manager during that time.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, so that's when Corrupt came back right
Oh,
after
yeah,
that.
after he went and did the little, I remember the little shit
yeah.
was in the air. Yeah, I can recall. It's so many things that was a blur back then, but yeah, I was part of that Corrupt, Crooked Eye, Eastwood, Ray J, Booyah Tribe, Left Eye, and Gail Gotti and Queen, who was all there. Yeah.
Wow.
So being a part of
Keisha Cole, she was there too. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say so being a part of the Row, that's what it was called at the time. The Row. I would imagine when you were somewhat involved with the East Coast West Coast beef back then.
Well, to be honest, by the time I got around the Row, like Tupac had already passed. So that what everybody perceived to be East Coast, West Coast beef, it had already subsided. Yeah. It wasn't really prominent anymore. So and I've never really even believed in the East Coast, West Coast beef because to this day, shout out to Stillborn, the Revelator, and my boy D Nut, and my boy Tone Capone, like some of my very best friends that I've had maintained relationships with since the mid-'90s are natives of the East Coast. And when all this industry perceived beef was going on in the streets of LA, you know how many people there are that even know anybody from the East Coast that they could even potentially beef with? It's a very low percentage. It never happened. There was no such thing as an East Coast, West Coast beef.
This is true.
Yeah, there was a few artists on the East and a few artists from the West that didn't like each other, that had issues, and they repped their section while they worked out their issues. But as far as the East Coast, West Coast beef, all the major artists from the East Coast were still moving to the West, and all the major artists from the West Coast was handling their business on the East. They even had incidents of shootings at video shoots that I don't even believe that have ever really been associated with the beef. I think that was so random at the right time when Dog Pound was in New York shooting videos, some traders got shot up, and the fact that the timing caused it to appear to be associated. I've been to the East Coast way after that. Just think about this. At the time that Tupac was and Biggie were considered to be in the East Coast, West Coast war, to us, there was no such thing as a New York Cripper blood. The whole hip-hop was always about battling in styles. And initially, before it was a beef, it was about a style clash. It was the West Coast versus the East Coast. It was the roughneck, one pants leg pulled up with the hoodie with the yo-yo versus the khakis, gangster. Whose style is fresher, flyer? And then that's what it was about. And when you start expressing yourself from a West Coast perspective, when we was pushing the gangsterism, even when Ice Cube goes into artist mode, it's gonna come out sounding like gangster mode.
Yeah.
So you, as an East Coast, you get so offended thinking, oh, it's like that. Now your projection becomes more aggressive. And the audience who's not either East Coast or West Coast nor artists, they think, oh, it's beef. Yeah. But majority of the people that you heard on wax dissing each other, not only were they capable, they were involved in like tapping in, talking to each other behind the scenes. That happens more often than you realize. East Coast, West Coast beef. Can you imagine, like I told you, when Tupac and Biggie was going through that, there was no such thing to us or to the majority as a New York gangbanger. And now, it's like you would think that New York has been cripping and blooding since the 60s. That's what you would think, the way it is now. from Bobby Shmurda to Takuchi to Asanova to the whole, what's the Nine Trey, to the Dave East. They have nobody to offer that has been established for the last 15 years, even Pop Smoke. They all somehow Crippin' Blood affiliated. And that is amazing. And you might not, your name reminds me of another legend from New York. That's my partner, the HNIC, half of Mobb Deep. Shout out to Havoc. Prodigy is a personal partner of mine. He was what New York gangsterism was. But look now, who is the popular Prodigy's type? It's over with. Yeah. You got to be on some. Who has gotten some shine from New York that doesn't Crippin' Blood in the last 10 years?
I couldn't personally tell you.
Even in battle rap, the biggest one, Sue Surf. Even though he's from New Jersey, what's the other cat name? Clan Gray Street with the dreads. I don't know. It's just been a very contagious type of way of carrying ourselves, and I'm not proud of it. You know what I feel like real ironic is when you mention that in some sort of a debate or a conversation with a lot of people from that region, they'll be like, well, y'all copied us with hip hop. And I think okay, well, we picked up something positive and you're going to compare it and brag about following us into doing some bullshit because in all, the red, blue, black on black, Crippin' and Bloodin' for the majority obviously is proven to be some bullshit. So why even, in their ghettos, in their streets, even amongst their gangsterism, it was always some element of black first, community-based. They had the 5% type shit. And I think us as a people would have been better served if their influence would have been more prominent versus ours. Because we came with this, I don't give a fuck, I'm gonna smoke weed all day, hang out, fuck bitches, and drink 40s. And that shit turned out to be the most popular way, which is detrimental.
Yeah, you're right.
So after this whole being a part of the row, after you stopped working with them, leaving them and stuff like that, you met up with Young Buck, who is 50's artist and stuff like that. I want to know who set you up with that.
Okay, student. Okay, historian. Did a little checking up. It's very ironic, bro, I swear to God, because what actually happened was me just doing my process of living and moving around, networking. I had to swallow a lump in my throat and one day get at Suge and ask him to just take me off his website. Because what happened was the person that actually, just think about in the early 2000s, the internet wasn't what it is today. So I was one of the first people who actually had a place on the internet where you could go and just tap in with me as an artist because I was associated with Suge Knight and The Row. So he had this big website that everybody didn't have. And when you go to The Row's website, he didn't give a fuck about internet, but he was such a entity that he had somebody on his team that knew the importance that he had a hell of a presence. He wasn't tapped into it, didn't give a fuck. But shout out to John. He fucks with Reggie. They do the Bomb First shit now.
Yeah.
That voice you hear in the background, he looked just like your pops. And his name is John.
Where's he from? Because he has an accent.
Initially LaGrange, Georgia, when I met him back in the days. But he was very efficient with the internet way back then. So what took place was, as me being an artist affiliated with Suge, I was running into situations where it wasn't serving my benefit. And I told John, yo, bro, because what way Suge had it set up, when you come to the Row website, you can go in, you tap into The Row. But then he had it to where each artist that he represented had their own little section where it was like their own website on there. Yeah. And I had that. And because I was realizing, this wasn't really benefiting me to be associated so closely with Suge when I went to network, it got to a point where I told John, I'm like, hey, bro, take me off that website. And John told me, he was like, hey, yo, I wouldn't mind taking you off, Spider, but at this point, I can't do nothing like that unless somebody at the office gives me authority. Mm-hmm. So I was faced with having to approach Suge Knight and tell him I don't want to fuck with you no more.
Damn.
Yeah.
That sucks.
So I had to, at one point, take the opportunity when it was my time, just me and him to speak. Like I say, swallow that big lump in my throat and very tactfully and politically express to him how I realize it's being more of a detriment to be associated with you versus a benefit.
Damn.
And I need to like sever that. I explained to him, I asked John to take me off the website, and he told me he couldn't do that without anybody from the office giving him authority. And to my surprise, Suge was very, very accepting, and it went way easier than I thought.
Damn.
With no negativity. He said he understood, apologized that he wasn't in a position to do what he actually wanted to do. And if he ever was in that position before I really got straight, it don't matter. We gonna get cracking. You my homie. So imagine when I had no idea that at this point in my mind, it's a blur. Had no idea that very, very shortly thereafter, this is what happened. This is to keep your question going in the same place. So I did that. It was also a spiritual time in my life where I was like faced with having the courage to separate from the biggest thing I had ever known and choose absolutely nothing.
Did other people around you know that you were that spiritual?
Yeah, I mean, not always. You know what happened?
Like, did Suge know that?
No, hell no. Nope. But I would have experiences like this. I'll be a young nigga on the yard in prison, and like I might be over here playing dominoes, whatever. And then right here on this table, it's a conversation going on about religion and spirituality that has nothing to do with me. But all my life, eventually, I was not able to resist getting involved in that conversation. And then once I got involved and started speaking, everybody around who knew me as Baby Spider used to be like, what the fuck? How you woo-woo? So that is my experience too. I was always drawn to those type of conversations and debates. So I always maintain a sense of duality, and I've never been ashamed of my experience as being exposed to both elements. It's always been a part of who I am.
Yeah, I feel that.
So what I was trying to get at. So, gotta kind of catch me back up to where I was at. Pops threw me off.
We talk about how you got into connects with Young Buck.
Oh yeah, so bam. So I finally had got that shit like this shit ain't popping, whatever. Then at that time I had hooked up with a cat from Watts, and me, him, and my boy Piper this night, we was doing a thing called YOLO, EBE, everybody eat. Way before Drake marketed the term YOLO, that was the name of our little label. But our process of getting ourselves in position to make moves was street shit. And the cat that was being the CEO, he had the plug where he had the products and all that. And he had the connections out of town. And the way we was planning on getting our finances together to be able to fund our label was to get our hands dirty, do our shit. So what happened was I took a trip to Atlanta, Georgia under the guise of a older individual who's gonna be the CEO of this label. I had I had like a kilo of cocaine. I had a few thousand ecstasy pills. And as I was there, we went to Atlanta, Georgia. He introduced me to about 5-6 cats in about 3 or 4 days. He jumped on a plane, went back to Cali, and I had to rely on the network he provided for me. And the weed hadn't got there yet. I was waiting on pounds of weed to come through the UPS at certain businesses. I had to trust these country ass niggas. I mean, really, like saying that we were supposed to be on the 12th. I done sat for hours from the 12th, 13th, 14th. It ain't came. We called it thinking it's bullshit. Had to wait till the 18th and it finally come. You had to take the chance that it ain't hot. They ain't found it. Then I remember having to be in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm talking about, long story short, during that period of time, my oldest brother, my name is Spider. I'm Baby Spider from 97th Street. I got an oldest brother. That's my daddy's son from 97th Street. He Big Spider. He was in Nashville, Tennessee, which is less than 2 hours drive from Atlanta where I was. Went through some sibling rivalry type shit. He used to call me and tell me what was cracking on some gangster hustling shit in Nashville, what he was going through. And at that time, as a younger brother, I was in Atlanta just hoping my whole shit bubble to where I could finally tell him where it's cracking over here. And throughout that experience, he happened to tell me in Nashville, Tennessee, part of his appeal, trying to floss on me, I'll be with Young Buck, this, da-da-da-da. So he knows my aspirations as a rapper. I'm like, well, if it's like that, cuz, won't you call me with cuz on the phone? So he called me with Young Buck on the phone, bam. So I'm like, okay, my brother really out here with a nigga that got his own G Unit. I was not a G Unit fan at this time. The whole presentation that I heard from them, it looked so Hollywood and overproduced. I just wasn't into it. It was commercial. But once my brother made a real personal contact, I kind of like got dialed in and was like, okay. And subsequently, Young Buck was taking off on his Straight Outta Cashville tour, his debut album. And I was in Atlanta, Georgia, which is, like I say, less than 2 hours from Nashville, Tennessee. And the cats that my brother was with from Nashville was so close to Young Buck that on that tour, Young Buck was scheduled to come to Atlanta very shortly there. And then, so the people that my brother was with in Nashville, they came to Atlanta a couple days before Young Buck was scheduled to be there. And we was hanging out, going to clubs, linking up, running the streets together. And they knew Buck on his tour was coming to Atlanta soon. Mm-hmm. They was real close to him, his Nashville homies. These are niggas my brother was fucking with. So I can remember one time we left the club, we was in the Waffle House, like 3, 4 in the morning, right before the sun came up. I'm loaded, high. And the niggas that we was with in Atlanta that was from Nashville didn't really give a fuck about rap. That was on some whole other street shit, getting money. But I just took that moment to start rapping a cappella in the motherfucking Waffle House. And I remember one of the Young Buck homeboys doing me like this. He was like, oh, dog, I ain't know you had it like that, dog. He like, check this out, I don't give a fuck about no rap. He like, but when Buddy get here, talking about Buck, he said, when Buddy get here, I'm going to put him in your lap. He said, I promise I'm going to put him in your lap. So we probably had 2 or 3 days before Young Buck was scheduled to get in town. And I can remember multiple times throughout them days, when we was moving through the streets, no matter what, he'd catch my eye, he'd just do me like this. And then the moment came to where these cats were so close to Buck. What just ironically happened was when he was scheduled to come to Atlanta, but I think he was supposed to go to Milwaukee from Chicago and then come to Atlanta. But while he was in Chicago, the G Unit spinner got robbed. He spent extra days in Chicago trying to get the spinner back, fucked off the Milwaukee date, and it caused him to come straight to Atlanta. So by the time he came to Atlanta, 50 wasn't taking no phone calls from him because of the whole shit. He was waiting till he saw him in person to speak to him. And the cast that we was fucking with from Nashville was so close in his circle that when Young Buck got to Atlanta, he had to go straight to the radio station. But the people we fucked with was so tight with him that we was in his hotel room before he got to his room. Oh, so we in there kicking it, smoking it with a portion of his road crew. So by the time he came from Chicago to Atlanta, went to the radio station, got to his room, it's a group of his homies in the room with some cats that he don't know, which includes me. Yeah. So this shit just happened a couple days ago. He get right in the room. I'm like a fly on the wall, sitting in the corner. And he telling a story from the moment, every detail, how the chain got took, because it got taken from D-Tay. So it didn't get taken from him. He talked about when D-Tay first came and asked him to wear it to the club. And he's telling the story about what happened all the way for him trying to go back and get the chain back. Shout out to Godfather and JoJo Capone from Chicago. But in the midst of all that, I swear to God, he telling this story, this important ass story, I just start rapping a cappella, drown him out. I swear to God, I'm sitting over in the corner. And the verse I used to say, every time I battled and all that, the first verse I used to say, I don't know if I still know it all by heart, but I used to just start, I drowned him off. Just the first shit I used to say always. I'm the most heated. I swear the West Coast needed, blue cleated, undefeated, guaranteed the three-peated. They can't beat it. Get mistreated, dismissed and deleted. Shouldn't have competed. SPI, so crisp and conceited, I'm weeded. 100 yards of grass, every pass completed. This neighborhood and this industry in me is deep-seated, filthy flesh, but don't feed it. Know the word, but don't read it. Tried to sit behind the pulpit, but couldn't stay seated. Rap sheeted because I cheated. Many bangers got breeded. Hope to make it to them gates. Don't even care how I'm greeted. In the pack, I'ma lead it. Never be impeded. Killing quota, gotta meet it. Born to 97th Street. In the pack, I'ma lead it. Never be impeded. I fucked up, but I had like tons of raps in my head that I was flowing. I used to start with that, so
Nice.
I could recall I could rap at that point.
In that pattern though?
No, like I would rap that, like I would utilize the fact that I knew it so well to put it in any pocket I chose back then.
Okay.
And I would go into like, I used to have like, no exaggeration, maybe 18 or 20, 30, 40 16s that I would just connect.
Okay.
That's how I used to battle and all that. I would never lose a battle because I had so much shit committed to memory that I never met it. And then, so long story short, before I could even finish, he got to stopping me. He shut me down. He was like, man, how you move a nigga with words like that? We all know the same words. Man, niggas be on me with that Pac shit. Fuck that, you got it. I can't believe you ain't got no situation, man. If my people can't make it shake, I'm gonna have somebody. So this is how I first grasped him as a supporter in, being able to get in with the G Unit crew. But like I told you, his initial interest was his chain had got taken that night. And when he started talking about his experience that he went through in Chicago and trying to get his chain back, certain names was popping up that seemingly could help him get his chain back. One of them was J.O. Felony in my mind frame because he told me that's the homie. He told me he saw a lot of made men chains while he was moving through the process. All I knew is J.O. had did an album with the made men shit. I knew deep down it wasn't no connection, but I tried to I called J.O. on speaker right in front of Buck.
You were connected.
Thank you. Then guess what? The biggest blessing of it all was this at one point. He said at one point when he got to try to get his chain back, JoJo Capone from Chicago came out to speak to him. He said when he saw JoJo Capone, mind you, this is back in 06, 05, maybe even 04. This is 04, matter of fact.
Yeah.
So he said he talked to this dude, JoJo Capone. He's trying to get his chain back, his G-Unit spinner. He said, look at the dude. He tell him, Young Buck tell him hey, I seen you was on a DVD with Game. You Game homeboy. This should be cool. Okay, if you got the chain, I seen you. He the dude got kind of embarrassed, didn't know he was gonna recognize him. He say the dude went, they took a break, got on the phone, and whatever price that he had told him at first, he wanted $20,000 for the chain. He said once he said Buck say hold on. He called Game hey bro, I'm out here in Chicago. The nigga who got the chain, the nigga I seen on your DVD.
Oh shit.
He said after he talked to Game, the dude came back and wanted first he wanted $20,000, now he wanted $100. So to the point where it was Game told them, you playing yourself, man. That ain't no money. You ain't asking for no money. So
Damn.
swear to God, this
is
this how it played out.
So wait. But you're on the side trying to get the chain for the cheapest possible.
I just met these niggas.
You're trying to
because my brother bought it, but I already know Game.
I know you.
Yeah,
know
so I'm
Game.
trying to play my
yeah,
exactly. So I'm trying to. This dude from Tennessee, associated with the New York cats, this G Unit chain is taken. He impressed by my rap style. He let me know he gonna try to help me maneuver. So now, the chain got took. The names that's coming up, I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
I'm finna try to tap in with. So I call Game, which I know is fucking his head up that I give a fuck about a G Unit chain.
Right.
But I don't get immediately. I'm like, hey, cuz, check this out. The chain that was took in Chicago, my brother was there at the location. I feel like the chain got took for me. Game not having no clue that Young Buck is listening or I'm in.
Oh, shit.
damn.
Okay.
Fuck them Spider. We from Compton. I don't give a fuck about them. Fuck that chain. So Buck got to hear this with his own ear. I don't have to tell you what this nigga said or none of that. I even think Yayo was on a three-way. I had just met him through the phone. So they both heard it. So bam. He also
and they were all cool with each other.
All cool. This was the biggest shock of their life at the time. And then, but Yayo was saying at the time, I told you I don't trust that nigga. Y'all fucking with it.
Damn.
So, what happened was, what happened was, bro, I swear to God, Buck is saying when the chain got took, he was out there doing radio promos. So when the chain got took, he went back to the radio station and asked the people, if something get taken from you in this area, who are you supposed to holler at to try to get it back? They directed him to this dude named Godfather. So Godfather supposed to be this OG, but they was having a summer jam that summer. Godfather was throwing the concert. He's the promoter, not one of the promoters. This is his show. So
trying to create problems.
He's on that level.
Yeah.
So he's a high-powered, paper-having, like he got Kanye on his show, and Kanye wasn't quite Kanye. Mm-hmm. But anyway, plus he's a gangster. I don't know if he was Gangster Disciple or but he's a
BD.
He's one of them, major level. So what happened was, when Buck went to the concert to try to get his chain, the Godfather dude told him, stay right here, don't leave. I'm gonna help you get your chain, youngster. And throughout all that, he said he was walking through these dark halls. Every few steps he went, people was there just smoothly stopping one of his securities. You can't go no further. Then he said, look, I only got one left. He said, without me knowing, somebody like, all right, homie, you straight. Before the next he know it, he was making his round last corner by himself. They did it so smooth.
Game was by himself?
Buck
Buck
to go see about this chain, but he had two security following him. He said so gracefully as he was going through these little twists, people on the opposite side would just, hold up, bro, he's straight. And now you know you finna hit this last corner that was kind of dark by yourself. And the Godfather nigga like left you on your own, and that's when JoJo Capone popped up, the game conversation came. So it happened when he tried to raise the price. Buck like, man, tell him keep it, fuck that. He leave town without letting Godfather know. So now he's in Atlanta. And now he's in Atlanta for somehow throughout the politic, and we get back on the phone with Godfather. But I'm in the picture now. So I'm gonna pick up where I left off. So the Godfather nigga, I'm like, yeah, I'm from LA, whoopty whoopty whoop. My brother was involved with that chain and da-da-da-da-da, and we trying to get it back. But I'm a young nobody. And the Godfather dude tell me like, well, if you from LA, homie, I'm gonna let you know what level I'm on. He's trying to impress me. He like, when I touch LA, I touch down with cats like Suge Knight. So I use that opportunity to like put extras on who I am. Yeah. I'm like, well, if you fuck with Suge Knight, no, I didn't go smooth. I went like extra, like, ask Suge about me. My name Whoopty Whoop. I'm from Whoopty. Yeah. Yeah, cause like I had just like left Suge amicably, and then I got to clicking with these cats, and me and Suge was still in communication. We fucked around, we politics, whatever. So I knew what it was, and I didn't know, even though I know Suge's reputation, I still anticipated he could have said some bullshit. I took a chance to over project and represent like, oh, you fuck with Suge, well, ask Suge about why. And long story short, hours later, a phone call came into our camp, and they told us that tell Buck he gonna get his chain back, and he could thank the Spider nigga. After he went and talked to Suge, whatever Suge told him motivated him apparently to make sure that he got the chain back. So I was locked in with Buck personally from that level. He tried to get me to follow him on the rest of his tour. However, like I told you, I was committed to being in Atlanta at that time for a whole nother purpose. And I told him I couldn't quite shake right now, but he was scheduled to shoot the Shorty Wanna Ride video in Los Angeles a couple weeks later. And I guarantee him I'll come to the video shoot. And that's where I got the opportunity to meet 50. Without making it a long story, I did a similar thing with him not being expecting. I started drowning him out while I was rapping as well.
Yeah, like he didn't know you was gonna be there.
Yeah, he didn't know. He had no idea who I was. He was talking to Buck and his crew about this chain and all the things.
So Buck had never mentioned to 50 about you.
Well, he must have, because when I did that, I remember Buck saying, 50, that's what I was talking about. So he had told him something. I had no idea. Yeah, so, and it jumped off well, and we started networking from there, and that's when I finally first got my actual first record deal, meaning signing the contract, and things was taking off. But at the same time, he took on, building me as an artist and taking on my career as a CEO. He also was doing projects entitled Before I Self-Destruct and going through a whole political negative situation with Interscope and Jimmy Iovine and Dr. Dre, and I got caught up in the mix of all that, and what he was proposing to do for me never quite took place. So I've been kind of caught in the purgatory of maintaining what it was and what it is when it comes to actual perspective. But I just appreciate the whole journey. And to be honest with you, when I reflect upon a lot of my experiences, a majority of them beyond what I was in the game for. I had the most humblest aspirations, and that was to actually realize that strangers that didn't know me at all appreciated what I did as an artist. And that has been overfulfilled in my life. So everything outside of that is kind of extra. I had real humble expectations. I know I've been blessed. Your desires, they kind of fluctuate based on your experiences. So when I did get affiliated with these cats, there was a time when I thought about, oh yeah, the biggest this whole experience can go. But I know a lot of things that are involved, they're associated with more than just your talent. A lot of moral issues come in place, integrity, character, even spiritual at times. So sometimes you gotta be, careful what you ask for. You always gotta be precise about what you pursue. So regardless of what we may have projected it to be at one point or the other, I just appreciate the whole process at this point.
Yeah. And like building those relationships, obviously coming from like death row and then, messing with these cats, getting into the situations that they were in. You mentioned Jimmy Iovine and all the stuff that, 50 was going through, all the rumors that was going on with him, what they were saying. I could imagine like being associated with so many different groups that like you must have had a whole lot of beefs, not gonna lie. I wanted to ask about like if you had ever been able to work with Wack 100 and your thoughts on him.
I've never actually worked with Wack 100. However, I am extremely familiar with who he is, Cash Jones. When you think about the industry, he's very visible and popular at this point. But before that was a fact, the only person ever mentioning Wack 100 to the public was myself. So it was a point when I had a mixtape called Bangadocious where it was pretty much directed at, we was beefing, or battling. I like to call it battling versus beefing with the whole Wack Wall and Doja, which is AKA Jayceon Taylor, the game Doja. This was a stripper name before he was actually a rapper. So he kind of like to stick to his original handle. So we was battling Doja, and I had a record where, because Wack 100 had showed up at Death Row, or The Row, with one of his reputable homies, Pooh Rider, rest in peace. And he was just a political, cool guy that was around with no consequence. Me being a lyricist.
Wait, let's back up. Why do you know that he showed up? What was the reason he showed up to Death Row?
Well, what happened was his homeboy, rest in peace, Pooh Rider, who was a reputable from Pacoima, did some time with Suge and developed a relationship that Suge told him, like, when I get out, I'm going to fuck with you. Come fuck with me. And Wack 100 being a successful entrepreneur, businessman, I can imagine when
in like what, the trucking business,
trucking industry, correct. He was experiencing some successes in the trucking industry. When it's time to go fuck with Suge, and you a street nigga from Pacoima, and you trying to think of which homie you gonna tap in with to take me. I think that was just like, this is my homie that ain't broke. I'm gonna take him. He ain't gonna be looking around thirsty. Yeah. And I can't tell you exactly what Pooh Rider's motivation for inviting Wack, but that was the way Wack was introduced to the scenario.
Got it.
And Wack highly benefited from the energy that Pooh Rider was like extra out with the bullshit. He looked for the bullshit first. Mm-hmm. And he had a reputation of being with all the bullshit. he and I developed a bond. I had a similar reputation at the time, but I'm gonna keep it a Google. He was more aggressive than me. He had a lot less to lose. I had aspirations as an artist. He didn't. He was just down with Suge. He was there to prove he was with all the bullshit. And Wacko No 100 benefited from that to the point where when I was having this battle or this exchange with Doja in the Whack Wall Streets, one of my lyrics was, I got 100 young niggas with me hollering 2 C's. Whack and Pool Rider. They're my niggas from 2 P's. I was really utilize the lyric to like, really my point was to stay in pocket, utilize the syllables. Pool Rider was reputable, but he did used to be with Whack, so Whack got an honorary mention in the line. But nobody never heard of him before I said Whack and Pool Rider, they're my niggas from 2 P's. But anyway, you know, he was just somebody that was around. He was cool. Didn't really have no reason to dislike him other than the first time I met him, he told me, hey, man, you used to fuck my girl. But I put her through nursing school and bought her some braces. She look way better now. So I always thought that was weird as fuck. I thought that was weird, so hella weird. Then I swear to God, I happened to be from the east side of South Central, affiliated with the East Coast Crips. Through the years, almost 20 years to the day, every time I would encounter Whack with one of my homies, and my homie would introduce himself as being from East Coast, he would take that moment to once again say, oh, my girl from East Coast, he used to fuck on her, but I bought her some braces and put her through nursing school. She look way better now. That was something that always I knew he was a queerdo about. But then what happened was us just being familiar with, you know, some of the same people in the industry, being around some of the same circles, there was no reason to hate on him. He also had somebody that was affiliated with my neighborhood from 89th Street that he claimed as his cousin that back then I was quite close to. So that was another reason for us to develop a somewhat fondness or respect for one another. That's kind of like what our relationship was based upon. And then through the years, whatever he was, who was, whatever, I went through a hiatus. I wasn't quite tapped into what was going on or being said on the internet. And when I tapped back into the internet, I found him giving an account of a story of Doja being approached by some G Unit members and his car getting spat upon.
Well, you keep saying Doja. Who's that?
Doja is Jayceon Taylor, a.k.a. The Game.
Okay.
And that Doja is the name that he utilized in his prior career as a male stripper, Studio East, Right Track, things of that nature. Okay. So I just refer to him as such. But Wacko No 100 has this whole account, this whole story about Doja being in a position where apparently I was supposedly be present alongside 40 Glock and a whole bunch of other G Unit cats, and we supposed to have spit on Game car. He was scared, in trouble. He made a phone call to Ho No 100. Ho No 100 was elsewhere. He wasn't even at the location, but he had the opportunity. He was with Suge Knight elsewhere. He told Suge, we got to go pull up the homie Game Need Us on Pyro. Suge told him, man, fuck that nigga. I don't give a fuck. So according to Wacko No 100, he punked Suge into saying, no, we going to go check on the homie. And he had the time to do that, come from wherever they were, arrive at a location where I apparently had Game surrounded, had spit on his car. I can't imagine what I was doing with all the free time. Well, according to Wacko No 100, he was able to respond, show up, and save Doja from any type of ill intentions I may have had toward him. However, on my mama, my daughters, my dead homies, my loved ones, my lokes, everything I love and live for, I was never at this incident. But I wake up, look on the internet, Wacko No 100 is telling this whole story how I was there. I had Game under the pressure. He didn't know what to do. Then Wack told the world he had a conversation with me where it made him look like this and it made me look like this. And guess who was there? 40 Glock was there. 40 Glock.
I know this story very well.
Thank you. 40 Glock has told this story a gazillion times. He wants the credit. He's telling Wack, Spider wasn't there. Prodigy, rest in peace, wrote a book. He told this story. Prodigy was there. He included everybody that was there except me. However, he tells other stories in the same book where he's trying to name everyone was there. And he includes me. But I wasn't at that incident. I don't know what got Wack so convinced I was there. He's not convinced I was there because he fabricated the whole conversation that we never had in life. And that's what I used as fuel to be so disrespectful toward him upon the internet. Once I saw him lie upon me, I committed myself to being more honest about him, which is he's a nobody poop, but Rudy poop. But go ahead.
No, but that story was it's a key story for 40 Glock because it shows that he basically 40 Glock his version is that he confronted the gang and gang backed down and Wack stepped in and said, hey, let's not get this all chaotic. Let's call a truce. Basically, it seems like that's 40's version. I might be saying it wrong, but 40's version would say Wack came in and said, hey, let's leave game alone. Just call it a day. Let's keep it pushing. Wack was like the peacemaker, from what I understand.
And 40 is proud to announce the most aggressive thing happened was that he spit on Gang's Bentley, and Bentley was standing, and Gang was standing there nervous and made phone calls, and 40 Glock was standing there, had Gang apprehended in an aggressive position, and he waited for Wack to receive phone calls, respond, and mediate, which everyone that knows me knows. If I had those type of intentions toward an individual, there's no such thing. There's nobody. It would never happen. I wasn't there, bro. I wasn't there. So I wasn't there. It's just that I wasn't there.
Oh yeah.
All right, so kind of wanted to bring this up. I know Prodigy didn't want to bring it up, but did you watch that video recently of that girl talking about her relationship with Wack recently?
Shout out to Madam Mika.
Yeah.
I just heard the ladies. I
don't even know if Prodigy knows about this, but can you talk about it?
Look, I don't know if you heard what I heard.
I heard that all.
I heard about what she said she did with her fist in her hand and how much he enjoyed that.
Can you talk about that?
As much, okay, check this out.
Okay,
Shout out to
explain
Madam
so
Mika.
Prodigy understands and the listeners understand.
Shout out to Madam Mika, neighborhood to the neighborhood. She is like a Los Angeles native that moved around. I think she lives somewhere in the Nevadas at this point.
Yeah, I think she lives in Reno.
Yes, but she has a podcast entitled Cocktails with Mika. I believe she's very active on Clubhouse.
And she seems reputable.
Huh?
She seems very reputable.
She has a connection to Los Angeles that Wacko No Hundred never has had and never will have because she's actually a native of Los Angeles. You have to drive further to get to Wack than I had to drive to get to y'all from LA. You feel me? But anyway, she apparently had a romantic situation with him that turned into be whatever.
Hold up, it's more than just to be whatever.
You guys, because I'm not. You guide where exactly you want to go, because
we gotta talk about what she said though. That's what's crazy.
Well, the first thing she said that was most shocking is that, and it makes sense because she produced video.
She did have video
of him belly down, booty up, seemingly awaiting to be manipulated, mounted, manhandled, and mauled. I don't know any other way to describe it.
Go ahead.
All right, so apparently, I don't know, they was Ho No Hunt and the homegirl Mika. They got associated through Clubhouse, whatever, I don't know, whatever. They was freaking whatever. According to her, he apparently had her in position in his mind for his prospective next main thing. He was going through a struggling marriage or where he was approaching divorce. This is all according to the homegirl that, you know. And then they got to doing some freaking and some communication. And she exposed that he was quite fluid with accepting penetration.
Hold on, let's back up a little bit.
Okay.
So from what she explains, they're in a place, a hotel in Reno, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they was out here.
Okay, no, she came out to California.
Via private jet.
She flew JetX.
He utilized one of his very few experiences with a private jet to expose her to the lifestyle.
Yeah. And so she flew out on JetX. They met in a hotel room. And these are her words.
Her words.
She met, they went to he came to her hotel room. I'm going to explain the story real quick.
All right.
Came to the hotel room. And then in the hotel room, she remembers what's the guy's name that she's familiar with from the Whack Nose?
The fool that I'm gonna tell you right, Reek.
Reek. So CEO Reek said she in her head, CEO Reek, who she fooled around with before back in the days, told her that, hey, be careful about Whack 100. He tries to play girls, so make sure you cover your ass. So in her head, they had sex. She went and showered up. She came out of the shower. She was getting her backpack on. She remembered, oh my God, this is what CEO Reek said. Cover my ass. Let me grab my phone real quick. And Whack 100 is laying on his stomach on the bed, yelling at people from Clubhouse with his toes wiggling.
No, wait. He was not yelling. He was speaking in a very smooth, subdued, subtle voice. And he was like talking to a male. And at the moment he was talking about, he was trying to pin the male into a position of admitting of how cordial he was with his vocal tones. He had his palms of his feet facing the ceiling. And they were alternating from the ceiling to the wall. And he seemed surprised that she was motivated to not only photograph, but film him in that position. So
yeah, and his big toes were touching, and his face down, ass up. And his toes were twiggling.
Don't get caught with your drawers down is the recent single from the Google gang. We did a record. I don't know if you've seen the record. We got a whole video about it.
So anyway, so she goes on to say that they ended the phone call. He goes, come over here, girl. And these are not exact. This is from what I remember. Come over here, girl. Make one finger and insert the finger. She inserts the finger. Now two. Says now two. These are just what I heard. Now two. And now three.
No, you skipping.
What?
Didn't she say turn them around and do the
No, hold up. Oh. Once she gets to three, he goes, okay, I got three. And she goes, but I'm going to see some doo-doo. She's like, that's okay. That's cool. And I'm like,
that's what I want to see.
Now, turn your fingers around. Now, Prodigy, show your fingers, turn them like this.
He doing it like this.
And he said, say, come here.
And go, come here.
And then what happened? She said, explosion, volcano, eruption.
Oh, I didn't hear that part.
Oh no.
Yeah, she said.
Shit.
She said he did everything.
Oh my God.
Yeah, she said he did it all over. And then guess what she just said this week? She said then, out of nowhere, one day, he FaceTimed her. Have you heard this?
No.
Oh, wow. Guess what this? She said he
By the way, this is Whack 100. So
she said, yeah, Whack Ho No 100 apparently FaceTimed her out of nowhere, right? This what took place.
This is all alleged. We don't know that this is fact.
Oh, yeah, y'all. I got to send you this. Can you play this on something louder than my phone?
I can edit it in for sure.
Okay, but right now, let's see how you can hear it right here. Hey, hold up. Let me start it over again.
I just need to hear it. I can add it in later.
And one day, he called me with, one day he FaceTimed me. As soon as I answered it, he was with a tranny.
Oh my God. Damn.
If you think that ham shit, she go dumb right here.
I mean, do you think she's lying? Like, it's come on, man. Like,
Look, bro. Look, I'm such a fair guy, right? And I have and I don't give a fuck about Wacko No 100 to the point where I don't care if she's lying or not. But
that's serious.
Even when I try to stretch to the exhaustion of my imagination, I still give her the benefit of the doubt. Because we stay giving these guys the benefit of the doubt, bro. Whack hangs with Ray J. Ray J is comfortable naming June. You know what June is to the world right now, right? Ray J said it's not that. It's Ray Pride Month. Ray J goes comfortably in front of the world and sticks his tongue out this long and looks at the camera and says, "Ooh, my shit red." And then he like, "Look, it's time for all you heterosexual people that." He pushes that line. He said it's not Ray Pride. He says it's not gay pride. It's Ray Pride Month. That's his peoples. Ray J said he run around with booty goons. Ray J himself, I can show you. He declared June, which is commonly known as Gay Pride Month. He said it's no longer Gay Pride Month. It's Ray Pride.
All right, so it's Ray Pride.
There's no more associating yourself. You cannot associate that close and not be a member. That's like, I'm not only the Bosley?
You're not only the president.
I'm a member too. He cannot back out of that.
You're not only a member, you're also the president.
And you know his best friend is Young Buck. You must be, if you know Ray J that closely, you must.
I do know Ray.
Thank you. Do you know Buck too?
I don't know Buck.
Whoa, then you don't know Ray.
I do know Ray. Really well.
I think you know Ray. And I'm not talking about Young Buck the rapper.
Well, you're talking about Young Buck with the tranny.
His partner. When I knew Ray J, we was at the road together with Keisha Cole, with Corrupt.
Damn.
Ray J used to run with Buck. And I can recall being in a casual conversation, and just because of the way we're indoctrinated in the streets, I said something like, "Oh, he gay," and Ray J immediately shouted, "That's a plus in this industry." Yeah,
He might be right, actually.
no, he's not might, not maybe. He's definitely correct. But I'm talking about this took place like in 04, 05, when I was just getting introduced to the whole energy, and he was in my mind already associated with Suge. He was a Pyro. I didn't expect to see him that fluent with his association with the other side. He was one of my first introductions to the duality of the
crossover.
What?
The crossover.
Yes.
EPMD, the crossover.
Yes. And just know this, and I'm off this subject, y'all. Y'all fed me this red cup. It's like a red pill. Brandy, I was her very first crush. The same school I told you I went to in Torrance, the private school.
Yeah.
Brandy attended it. I believe I was in 10th grade. She was like in 7th or 6th or 8th or something like that. But you see how she tackled the world. She was young enough to make me her boyfriend. I had a girlfriend that was my age, I'm getting in trouble for PDA at school. But Brandy was young and bold enough she was bringing me like suckers, and I remember we used to have assembly in a small room, and she used to sing with this big ass voice. I knew this is a motherfucker right here. But then she used to swear to God, she used to ride to school with another family. All of a sudden, she stopped coming, and I can remember as a kid asking her, "Hey, what happened to Brandy?" And they was like, "Oh, she got a deal singing commercials for Walt Disney." And a few years later, I want to be down. I remember being real puzzled. Like, I knew that was her. But I used to wonder, is that her? And after I got on Ray J and confirmed it was her, I used to try to get him to put me on the phone. He would never put me on the phone with her. What up, Brandy? Coach Crip, I ain't lying. Her first crush.
To be honest with you, Brandy's probably is in the entertainment business. She's probably the nicest girl I've ever met.
Wow.
In the entertainment business. Keep it all the way 100.
This is how long industry tight, successful, great. Yeah. It's how long it's been running for me, bro.
You've been in the game for a minute.
But this is how long it's been running for me. One of the themes that rules my life right now, based on my religious experience, is all roads lead to Nineveh. If you know the Jonah story, based on my indoctrination, I feel real close to Jonah. And I just think there's some kind of like real pertinent message that I'm eventually responsible for delivering. Don't quite know what it is, but I'm trying to put myself spiritually and morally in position, ready to say it whenever it is. So I was kind of committed to just keeping it a Google, facts over feelings, trying to be as honest as possible. Because I think if I do have some type of prophetic spiritual message to deliver, the first things I have to commit myself is the courage of being honest. Huh?
You're gay.
Say what?
No, I'm just seeing if you're trying to make me confess. I don't know. If you're trying to come out or not.
Never.
I don't know.
Never. And look, I don't want to be a basher or anti-nothing, but hey, you're a fool for that. I don't even know what to say. I'm like, what did I say to get that indication? Hell
trying to
no.
make a confession.
No,
you're building up to something big.
No. I believe that. Like, I swear to God, this is my thing, bro.
Yeah.
Like you say, I've been around all that.
Yeah, you've been the OG.
But I've been pushing bullshit. I realized that there's a whole lot of like room for something to be said that matters. I believe I am capable of constructing messages that matter. But I think I kind of like have allowed my gift to be attributed toward or contributed toward things that don't matter. And I'm looking for the things that matter to say.
Well, we do want to talk about some things that really don't matter, but because they're interesting. Like, Prodigy, you had some questions about checking in.
Oh yeah.
Talk that shit.
So I've interviewed a lot of gangster rappers, a lot from different hoods all over LA, different states and stuff like that. I wanted to know because my pops tells me a little bit about it, but I want to get it from your perspective,
Checking
being
in matters.
in that lifestyle and stuff like that, being affiliated. What's it like, and what's it really mean to have to check in order to go into a neighborhood? Because I know the basic understanding is if you're not from this hood, you gotta make sure that the hood knows you're coming through.
Okay, before you ever heard of the word check in or it ever became like trendy to discuss the subject, Ice Cube prophetically had a record called How to Survive in South Central. Yeah. And he basically gave you the blueprint of how to survive, especially a place where busting a cap is fundamental. No, you can't find the shit in a handbook. Take a close look at a rap crook. Rule number 1, get yourself a gun. A 9 in your ass will be fine. You keep it in the glove compartment because jackers, they love to start shit. And if you white, you can trust the police. Yeah. But if you black, they ain't nothing but beast. Look out for the kill. Don't make a false move. Keep your hand on the steering wheel. And that's your first lesson in staying alive. In South Central, that's how you survive. But he goes on to tell you a whole lot of curricular of how you stay alive in South Central. And jacking and robbing has been a part of it from day one. Now that the industry, Hollywood is in our backyard. The music industry as far as hip-hop, it kind of like the Mecca was New York, even on the corporate side. But because Hollywood and entertainment is more of a West Coast LA thing, it's kind of turned into, if you're in the industry, you're going to spend more time in LA than you are in New York, no matter who you are, if you're successful or right on the cups or trying to be successful. Then you have this Hollywood LA thing that's been marketed ever since we can remember as this go to LA, get your dreams. And then we also have this South Central Compton Colors, Boys in the Hood. And I think that the people from out of town don't realize how close the two are. And I think we live in a reality where they merge so often and the people become victim of it nowadays are the out of towners because we've been learned. Be careful how you move. Mm-hmm. And out of towners see the side that's promoted and marketed on television that seem like the beaches and the palm trees, and don't realize that it's people that look like me and others that are put on twice as much jewelry as you got on and come in those environments and cause you to be real calm, but their intentions are extremely sinister. It's hard to kind of like map out what's the potential outcome in LA because you never know the extremes a predator would go to make you feel comfortable before he pounces upon you or preys upon you. Yep. They know, like if you know the term flocking, you young enough to know what flocking is. Do you know what flocking is?
No.
Flocking is the practice of breaking into the houses of people who are going about doing their business. And typically people come from the ghetto and they go out close to these areas or further. They'll scope it, they'll watch it and make sure nobody's there. Then they go break in your house and take a chance that you have some valuables. They call that flocking. It was an epidemic. The same way, like in the 80s, crack was an epidemic in the ghettos. Flocking was an epidemic in the mid-2000s and the teens. There was no more drugs until lean and all these prescriptions came. From the crack era to the lean and prescription era, there was a fucking era of there's no product that weed was so everybody had it. So what happened was the youth of the ghetto started breaking in the houses of more affluent people, and they called it flocking. So that's what flocking was. I forgot exactly why I brought up the concept of flocking. I got distracted.
Nah,
My
it's all
bad.
good.
But you the prodigy, so get us back on track.
Put them on game.
Yes, yeah, but
no.
the majority know. But we was having a subject about something specific, but
No,
you feel me?
yeah. So, how does it work? How does one person like check into like a certain?
Checking
neighborhood?
in. So this is the thing, bro, with checking in, bro.
Do you have to be like have like a certain like level of like being known or like have a like? Do you have to be somebody like well known to be able to check into a hood?
Not when it comes to entertainment industry and popularity. You have to be someone that's tapped into the underworld enough to where you don't have to be popular or famous. Those are people that checking in really matters with. And LA is not specific for checking in. It's just more pertinent, and you have more examples of to why it matters is because there's more people coming here that are affluent from that lifestyle because it's LA. It's so much going on. But guess what? Me personally, not because I feel like I need to, have to, but I swear to God, on my mama, if I was to get on a flight right now, and especially if I don't want to take weed on the plane because where I land is not as cool as it here, I want to know as many people as possible where I'm going. It's just a natural desire of me. If I'm not from there, it makes sense for me to know somebody. Plus, I come from a culture of going on tour. Typically in the independent industry and people that come from the streets, once you go on an actual industry tour, that tour is really only to set you up for the tour after the tour. The real tour is the tour after the tour. I'm trying to network in these clubs and in these cities and move and politic with the right people so I can establish the tour I'm going to take after this tour. And that's a tour we typically are more interested in. And, you know, it all comes into, you know, how committed you are to do one thing or the other because everybody is trying to make it and a lot of opportunities present themselves along the way.
Yeah. There's an incident not too long ago with Quando Rondo when he got ran up in L.A. and his homie ended up getting killed and stuff like that. I just wanted to know if you have any insights if he was checked in when he pulled up and when that whole situation went down.
Man, from what we could see him on the internet, he knew quite a few people in L.A., some people that we would consider, you know, influential, prominent, and all that. So it just goes to show. Rest in peace to the Keyway Christ neighborhood nip the crib. You can see, like, you know, the most eloquent, accepted amongst us can become or fall victim to the most worst outcome. So who could Quando Rondo's unnamed homeboy, Lil Tom, who knows him? So if Nipsey could get it, just imagine. So I don't know if he tapped in or not, because just believe Neighborhood Nip was tapped all the way in.
Yeah.
So to try to assume or assess whether or not Quando Rondo and his homie was tapped in is neither here nor there. This is la la land. It gets crazy out here for even the most notorious native person. It can go wrong. One of the coldest songs in that Ice Cube song I was trying to rap earlier, the coldest line is he say, shit, they say the strong survive. Shit, the strong even die in South Central. Like, and we know how we all accept the phrase the strong survive. I can remember how eloquently he challenged that when I was in my youth. It made sense because, shit, they say the strong survive. Shit, the strong even die in South Central. And that's how it is out here. You can be totally prepared. But just think about it. We have had presidents assassinated. And those that didn't die, they been struck by bullets. Nobody in our lifestyle is being more protected than those. So anybody can get it.
Well, let me ask you a question. Was it true that Quando reached out to you for to check in?
What happened was, shout out to my homie Lil Slam from 97th Street. Lil Slam from my set, right? He has no industry type connections or any of that. So it was ironic one day he called me out the blue. He was like, hey, cuz, check it out, cuz. He like, hey, you You want to fuck with the nigga Quando Rondo? He looking to have somebody to be tapped into when he get to L.A. Like, I don't know. Like, he had hit the internet a few months before where he was having some, like, issues. He just want somebody to be tapped in with. I told the homie, of course, like, hell yeah. Plug me in, cuz, what's happening?
Right.
And then he like, all right. It didn't go through. And I can remember talking to him like a week or two later. I'm like, cuz, what happened? He like, whoever he was in touch with and hit him back or whatever. But then a half a year or a year later, when the shit went down, I remember calling the homie out of nowhere, like, cuz, he was trying to get me killed. He like, what the fuck you mean, cuz? I'm like, man, you tried to hook me up with that Rondo. Yeah, like, that's crazy. So it really was, like, ironic to me that he went through that incident because shortly there, before that, maybe a year or less, he was reaching out to L.A. trying to find somebody to be tapped into that he could feel comfortable out here. And I don't know if he personally was aware of me, but throughout his search for somebody comfortable to click up with, I got the call. I don't know how aware he was if I got the call or not, but I was so aware that he was looking for that type of energy. When he went through such an incident out here, it was like woo-wee to me. Yeah. Because I remember he was trying to secure himself against that type of incident.
Well, do you think he knew who the people were coming at him or?
I'm such a non-crime solver. I'm just not, like I could, if we were not.
Could have been anybody.
Yeah, it could have been anybody.
Yeah, for real.
Exactly. It's La La Land.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Shit. Well, on a lighter note, I don't like all that, then, checking in, all the bullshit that goes down in the streets.
But it makes sense out here to check in and know somebody. Not that it's all in,
anywhere, right?
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere in here primarily. But just think about, we got the loss of Offset, rest in peace. Duke the Jeweler, rest in peace. The whole Chicago contribution to the loss of life within the hip-hop realm. It doesn't just stop here, even though we seem to be the mecca of the mayhem. It goes without saying, when you're dealing with the have-nots, you would do better not to hop over a gate full of motherfucking starving lions with a necklace full of roast beef. It just seemed like it didn't make sense not to.
That's correct.
Yeah, feel that. Shit. I mean, I guess it just comes down at the end of the day that, like, you could try to stop that shit, but, like, you can't. There's so many people roaming the streets that are unknown that got nothing to lose and ain't even caring. And you could just
what I really believe is, we're facing on the grandest spectrum. It's the same way if, like, just imagine we had 13 or 14 ocean tanker ships traveling with like a great magnitude of oil and fuel aboard. And somehow they all got blew up and all that oil was into the ocean. It's bad of a pollution problem that is, and it's going to take some time to work it out. It's going to be gone eventually. I believe as humanity and a lot of our ailments, I think we're in a similar situation. That's just going to have to work itself out.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna take like a couple generations because nowadays with the internet, there's so much more movement about
and knowledge. Yes, I agree. I think that's gonna affect a whole lot of different fronts that need change. Definitely. I don't even want to get into how deep I focus on that concept. That's deep.
Yeah, I think it stems a lot from the internet showing how many and how quickly like these known rappers are getting killed and knowing that they're affiliated.
And I think like the martyr movement, when you die for something positive, it attracts more members. When you die for something negative, it seems to be a deterrent. Mm-hmm. So I think that effect, like I say, the generation that I have participated in raising, they don't seem to be as adept to being mischievous and as negative as we were for whatever reason.
Yeah. So going back to you, I seen that so randomly I saw you got on the TV show Wheel of Fortune. I want to know how that went down. How you got man, that get going up?
Shout out to you, man. That's the best question you asked all night. Wheel of Fortune has long been like my favorite television show. Before it was such thing as Wheel of Fortune, I can remember being in school and if we were just having a project or assignment of a word puzzle where we had to circle all the words diagonal, or if it was fill in the squares, I can remember as young as I can imagine being real pressured and try to be the first one, nervous as fuck. And so many times I succeeded at being the first one. It was, I don't think nobody in the class was trying as hard as me. I don't think nobody cared as much as me as being first. And I'd be so nervous, and every time I got to say finish before anybody, I would have such a fucking orgasm.
That's a rush.
I couldn't, and it led all the way to me being a fucking young person, an adult, and Wheel of Fortune was the only outlet I had to challenge that. And no matter who I was around, if we watching it casually, I swear to God, they could have like a 12-word puzzle with like 4 fucking letters exposed, and with the fucking clue, I could just hit out because it is what it is.
You're like a wordsmith.
Thank you. I'll take that. I can. It used to be this deep, y'all. I'll be in a cell with my celly, and Wheel of Fortune to be on. I swear to God, it'd be such a puzzle with so many letters, with such few exposed, and I guess it. And once that's it, he'd be like, "Man, you seen this before? This is a rerun." And that was my experience with Wheel of Fortune, to the point where she's now my child mother, 2 of my children. As we was developing our relationship as youngsters, she used to see me do this with Wheel of Fortune. At one point, she was like, "Fuck that." After the show come off, they tell you how to get on. We used to have to send in a postcard. I remember she did that, sent in a postcard, never heard from them. Then years later, after we had 2 boys and I had more kids, that even one from her, we was watching it together again, and now the process was sending an email. She, upon herself again, sent the email, and I got a call back, went to the audition, and I got the opportunity to participate on my favorite show with Sajak and Vanna White. Did pretty well. I won. If there was like 6 puzzles that day, I won 4 of them.
Were you nervous?
Yes, but for the majority of the process, the nervousness was manageable. It wasn't like I anticipated. You know what I was benefited from? Let me share this with you. When you are a Southern California native and you get chosen, before you get to be a contestant, you have to be an alternate. So before I actually came to be a contestant, I had to come one day and watch a whole day of episodes just in case somebody didn't make their flight, got sick. So I got to see the whole process. And then it was my turn. So I wasn't as nervous as I would be. And I'm going to share this little secret, because I swear to God, it's one thing in the Wheel of Fortune world where, you know how they had the wedges?
Yeah.
And once certain shit, you pick up a wedge, it's presented to you, it's certain decisions you have to make based on what the wedge is. One of the main things is, on this side of the wedge is $100, and then on this side is 10. And you got to guess if you want to accept what you see, or if you want to gamble on the flip. And if you gamble, you give it's versus $100 versus 10,000. Remember, I had to be an alternate first. So I remember being an alternate, and they were showing like, okay, this is the time where, you know, when you see this, 10,000 on this side, 100 on this side, you might have to decide. Swear to God, there's 2 of these on the fucking spin thing. It's on my kids, cause when they were doing the shit, I noticed one of them had a little dent on the side. I just noticed. I'm like, okay.
Hustler mentality.
Oh God. When they called me back 2 or 3 weeks later to be a contestant, what you know about, I got confronted with that fucking card. And the way it is like, past Sajak, he asked the audience, what should he do? And the way that it normally goes, the audience pumps you up for a certain choice that almost everybody takes. But I had seen that little wedge, and I knew, I was like, nah, I'm cool. I remember everybody was like, boo. Pat was like, don't boo the man. And I had it right, but nobody knew. The only reason I had it right is because it was a fucking defect on the wedge, and I remembered the wedge from last time. But long story short, I did pretty well on the Wheel of Fortune. I made $6,500 in 22 minutes. I actually could have made like $30,000 or $40,000 in the trip to Jamaica, but I choked. It was almost like being in the end zone, 0 seconds left on the clock, Super Bowl at hand, you're down by 3.
It's like the kicker.
And tonight, Mr. I just the moment got slightly too big for me.
Shit.
Yeah, that's all it was. I choked.
6,500 in 22 minutes.
Yeah, you can't be mad at that.
Yeah,
Tax
at all.
free, yeah.
I mean, that shit is great.
Yeah. I also seen you be wearing Baymax Entertainment clothing. Is that your business?
It started off with the M representing money, of course. Be about your money at all costs. But I got to a point in my life where we was pushing that, pressing that so much. And just my deep process of thinking and the way I went through, I realized money was not really enough to be putting everything on the line for when money is made by humans. I don't think anything that humans made is worth dedicating your life to. And even though we're living in a system that reminds me of an aquarium, and if you think about an aquarium, there's parameters, and there's an owner of this aquarium. No matter if you're a piranha or a shark or whatever the owner puts inside that motherfucker is what you have to depend on for your survival. And I realized that's the position that money takes in our society. So I don't just reject money, but I like the M these days to mean more than money. So we kind of flipped it to like not only be about your money at all costs, thanks to the mission, the movement, the life of the great and late Keyway Christ neighborhood, Nipsey Hussle, we go be about your marathon at all costs. But it's not just your marathon. It's be about your mindset at all costs. Be about your mother or your motherhood at all costs. Be about your manhood at all costs. Be about your metamorphosis. Be about your masculinity, because there is an assault on masculinity amongst us. So it's just be about your M's at all costs at this point. All the positive M's that you can imagine, we kind of like allow Baymax to represent all those. But initially it was, and it still constitutes, be about your money at all costs, because we realize you're nothing without some type of money around this motherfucker.
For sure.
But that's what Baymax is about.
Yes, sir. Shit hard, no lie.
Good looking.
I didn't know it stood. I didn't know if it stood for anything
and for
like
those
that.
that are not, BaymaxStreetwear.com is where you can find the gear on my mama.
Yes, sir. So what's up next for you? What are you planning for like the future? Let's say like 6 months ahead of time. What you planning to do? More music? Do more work on your YouTube?
I'm definitely going to be extremely active on YouTube, creating music, but now just as a natural, I'm about my metamorphosis at all costs. I'm a Baymacker, right? So at this point, I have reached out or branched out into my CEO role. I have 2 artists that I'm very extremely interested in seeing them reach success. One of them name is Blue Smurf, and the other one is Noonie Green. And she's from Long Beach. They both from Long Beach, as a matter of fact. One from the east side, LBC. And, you know, West Coast hip-hop at Long Beach goes almost hand-in-hand. Shout out to Snoop Dogg, Dash Dillinger, Trey D, Goldie, the Twins, C-Style, everybody. Rest in peace, Badass from Long Beach that has caused Long Beach. Yeah, on my mama. Even we got to give it up to Vince Staples, too. He didn't help keep it alive.
Vince Staples.
But my 2 artists just happen to be Noonie Green and Blue Smurf out of Long Beach. That's the Baymax ENT roster, and I also have a incarcerated artist who has been doing life since the 90s, and we was incarcerated together in the 90s. He's still yet to be released. He's from the DeWarty, Monrovia area of California. His name is Creep Durock, Creep the Crip, and that's my 3 artists at the time, and that's what I'm trying to push more so than myself as an artist. But I still get down, fuck around. We create all together. There are other projects we're working on. I'm in the process of writing not just a book, but a number or a couple of books. We're just doing a lot of things. I also, to be honest with you, I have a 9-to-5 job that I thank the creator of the entire universe that I have. Yeah, I am a casual longshoreman. Very eager to become a permanent longshoreman, but yeah, I started my job as an entry at like $32, $33 an hour. The raise program is extremely awesome. I've been there for like now, we're in 2023, since 18, so 5 years. And I appreciate that very much. So we just got a few streams of income, nothing making it where we don't have to do nothing else. So we do them all, and we appreciate everything we get up out of it at this point. Writing the book, we doing film, we doing independent projects. Of course, we got the Black Box, we got the Facts Over Feelings podcast. We got the artist Blue Smurf, Noonie Green, the homie Nate Nitty. We just still being productive, just doing what we can.
Yes, sir. Where do people look up? I know you mentioned it earlier, but say it one more time for everybody.
Check me out on youtube.com/SpotterLoke Most Easty. If you're on Facebook, you're that generation that still fuck with Facebook. It's Curtis Spotterloke Williams or Curtis SPI Williams on Facebook. Please go tap in, follow those pages. Instagram, they just knocked me down from my personal page. So I'm at Baymac Biz on IG. Y'all could tap into that. And like I said, the Facts Over Feeling podcast, FACTZOVAFEELINZ is on all your podcast streaming sites. Tap in with us there. We everywhere, anywhere, and nowhere at the same time. On my mama.
Yes, sir. Make sure to tap in. Get some real game from a real G in the streets and in the game all over. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for today. Once again, I really appreciate you coming in.
And I appreciate the invite. But what's the name of the platform?
Podcast with Prodigy going up on What's Good Entertainment on YouTube.
SPI, the Most Easty. Pleasure to be here with Prodigy. We going up on YouTube on my mama. My boy Flossie, man, it's generational wealth in effect, man. I'm with all the movements. Much love.
It's the podcast with a prodigy. It's the podcast with a prodigy. It's the podcast with a prodigy. My podcast.